everyone, I wanted to make another video. I haven't covered this topic in a while. The difference between ignoring, getting rid of, distracting yourself, and acceptance. Now, if you want to actually get very nitty-gritty into semantics, there is a level of ignoring that's involved in accepting. Because you're accepting something, it's there, but there's a piece of you that's ignoring it, of course. But it's not the way that society makes it out to be. In all major podcasts, in all the big people we talk about, all the big hosts around the world, whether it's a vlog, a podcast, I hardly ever see these terminology. And people say, that doesn't really matter. I say, it does. It really does matter, because anyone who has a serious anxiety-based disorder, right? OCD, PTSD, GAD, panic disorder, and body dysmorphic disorder. There's other things as well, but those are the main ones. Those techniques are really not going to do you any good. And they're also not that good even when you don't have chronic anxiety, because you're still not getting to the bottom of it. You're just lucky that you can get away with it without having to apply the correct approach, which I think would change your life anyway. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. This is something I know a lot about, since the majority of my OCD was not so much guilt and shame and primarily sensation-based, lots of sensations, and severe body dysmorphia and panic disorder and all that stuff. Doesn't really matter. I don't label it like that because it doesn't matter, but I know a good amount about this particular topic when it comes to the difference between accepting and then ignoring, distracting, refocusing, etc. So before I go any further, PhilOCDRecovery.com. Please come to one of our webinars and coaching services, and we can help you. And we work all over the world, time zones, etc. If you haven't watched my video from about 10 days ago called something about concentration, I would start with that and then follow up with this, because they run very nicely into one another. Now, if I was to go on YouTube, I'm tempted to take my laptop, which is right there, and type in anxiety podcasts. 5 ways to get rid of anxiety. Bad title. 3 ways to get rid of this sensation. Not good. Anything that starts with X amount of number ways and then getting rid of, push it behind you, ignoring, do not watch that video, because it's not going to do you any good. That doesn't mean there can't be good pieces in there. There could be. But even the title itself is steering you in the wrong direction, because acceptance does not require maintenance mantras and maintenance techniques like box breathing or anything. I mean, you see this. I just, well-intentioned as he is, Huberman was just on Jimmy Fallon's show 3 weeks ago saying box breathing is the best way to get rid of stress. It's just asinine. It's ridiculous. It's like that. Not only does that not work, it's comical in how much we have to cover this. And imagine telling, it's literally like if I take a gun and I shoot you right now in the femur, okay? I shoot you in the femur, it goes through your femur downwards, comes out your knee, you're screaming in pain, ah! And I say, I think I have a baby aspirin somewhere. And you're like, what? It's not that breathing techniques are inherently bad. It's just that it's comical on how much it doesn't do what they think. And then what happens is you have to be careful with this topic, because this is when the big words come out. And people say, well, I know a lot about neuroplasticity, and I am the genius when it comes to the prefrontal cortex, and I'm a neuroscientist. Except I coach numerous neuroscientists, PhDs, medical doctor neurologists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. Why? Because that doesn't work. So, and I've had many people. I remember one guy that came in from California, he was a psychiatrist, and I said to him 3 years ago, why do you come in to see us? He's like, because the community doesn't understand. It's so hard to understand why the techniques that they're well-intentioned, they say, doesn't work. So what does accepting actually mean? Okay? No mantras are needed. No moment-to-moment box breathing or grounding techniques. See, 3 things that you, so what is it? 5 things you could smell, 5 things you could taste, 5 things you could see. Again, that's like me taking a chainsaw and I cut your arm off and I go, I have Scotch tape somewhere. You're missing an arm? Hold on, give me 1 second. I have a Flintstone Band-Aid. It doesn't do anything, but it makes you feel like you're doing something because we want it to be easy. This is the problem with I've always loved metaphors, analogies, in describing things in a way that make people go, like when I speak to women, right? Women love this one. When I say, they go, people just tell me that don't ruminate. And I say, that's like me coming up to you on your menstrual cycle. And I say, hey, you, do me a favor. How long have you been on your menstrual cycle? 2 days. Turn it off. Just don't have that anymore, girl. Turn that off. And they're like, wow, that's a really good point. I'm saying, it's like if I broke your leg with a bat. I said, don't be in pain. Turn that pain off. Come on, you have control over that. Mind over matter. It's not that simple. Hardly do I ever see people speak about anxiety in a deep enough sense that actually gets you to understand, I do not need to get rid of my anxiety. I can have this for the rest of my life. Even if I have all the symptoms, it's still not the end of the world. Heart palpitation, chest tightness, blurry vision, irritability, IBS, GERD symptoms. This is another thing too. People don't understand what the mind is capable of. You know how many people I work with? They go from doctor to doctor, MRI, CT scans, EKGs, EEGs, blood work, absolutely convinced that they have something, even when scans come back completely fine. They don't believe it because they're not taking the chance on the worst case scenarios. We have to take the risk on the worst case scenario that we're missing something, that we're not getting this correct, that even if I notice my anxiety from right now until the very end of time, I'm not going to avoid anything. I'm going to keep doing everything I want to do. I'm going to work on my structure. There is no such thing as a finish line. I'm going to look at this as an ongoing process for the rest of my life. And if I do that, there's a good probability my chronic anxiety, depression, shame, the sensations you feel themselves will more than likely go away. But the more I look for those, it's like the best sonar system on earth. It knows exactly. That's why it takes so long, a couple years, to really develop unconditional self-life, other acceptance. I was no different. That's why I'm so passionate about this. And all the people that mean this, when I use the Huberman example and the Rogan podcast, these people, I always joke, me and Huberman hiked a 14er in Colorado, we'd have a blast. But this is just a topic that he does not understand. There's no other way to say it. And anyone who has the chronic anxiety knows this, then they feel hopeless. Like, I have worked with people who have spent $50,000 over a couple months in an inpatient facility. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars. Some of these facilities can cost $10,000 a week. And I say, did they talk about your beliefs one time? Not once. What did you do? Well, we went over some like meditation and yoga. I'm like, I could do yoga in my room for free on my thing. It's just sad. Like, again, it's the reason why it's almost impossible to understand. There's a couple things in life that experience is the most important part. Mental health, addiction, which is part of mental health, certain type of like, I make a joke. This is not like a thing about politics or anything. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of midwives who are men. I brought this up to someone the other day, and they were like, that's right, I haven't. It was this morning. They're like, do they have midwives that are men? I was like, no, or doulas. It's because of the connection with you giving a child and being able to help someone but you don't need to, you obviously don't need to be that good at money yourself in order to help people in finance, because there's people out there. They did a study on Edward Jones. It was like 5,700 of 10,000 advisors do not have a dollar to their name. But that doesn't mean they can't make their clients money if they're following systems. It doesn't always work like that with personal experiences. So it's easy to get the wrong information. It's easy to get your hopes up when you hear those things. But when I'm going about my life and something is bothering me, there is no refocusing. That's a big mistake. Focus on the present moment. You know how much time I spend focusing on the present moment? Like in that type of mainstream way. All the major people that talk about the present moment, zero time. Not even 1 second of my thought process goes to being present. And I'm pretty fucking present. I am incredibly present. I mean, Erica will tell you, when I'm on a hike, I am zooming. I am focused on my mission. But I'm not thinking about being present. I'm just enjoying everything around me. It's almost an oxymoron. It's similar to trying to control sleep. You cannot control sleep. I don't care what your bed is. All these things can help you. The bed, the sleep trackers, compulsive melatonin taking, box breathing before you go to bed, meditation. All you're doing is getting in between a cycle that should not be, should not be meddled with. The best sleep comes from no sleep routine at all. Zilch. That doesn't mean you go, I'm waking up at 6, then 9. It's having a structure to a degree, but you're not rigid about it. Like, I don't have a single, and I had bad sleep fears, especially when I had the tinnitus for about half a year. I think I slept like, it felt like I slept 1 hour a month. I mean, I was just having pain. I just felt like I couldn't do anything. Until I realized, it took me about a year, that I can't get in between this process anymore. And anxiety is the exact same way. So the more that, when you get that automatic trigger, if you start going down the rabbit hole with it and trying to solve in your mind, partly automatic, the second part. But that is something you can stop. When you hear people talk about ruminating as a compulsion, they mean that part. And they don't say it like that, but I think that's what they mean. The automatic part is similar to the example, me breaking your leg with a bat and telling you to turn your pain off. So acceptance has a piece of ignoring because you're engaging with something as it's there in the background. So you can't just say, well, you're definitely not ignoring it, because you kind of are, but you're ignoring it in the sense of it's being, some of you are thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But as you practice this, it becomes less confusing. It's like if I told you I don't know how to take apart an engine. If my buddy's an engine head, he like rebuilt an entire engine in the car in like 2 months. I was like, what? Like fully from scratch. And I'm sure if I practice it for 2 months, I'd be like, oh, wow, I actually understand this now. Instead of like, I know what the word pistons is. I don't know where it is. or the difference between the transmission. I don't know any of that shit. I'm a car guy, not a gearhead. So it's the same exact principles. But when you're accepting, it's this. I'm done. I'm giving up the fight on a moment-to-moment basis. I'm going to sit down a couple times a week. I'm going to go through my disputing. I'm going to think about my belief systems. You're going to use that little noggin of yours that you have up there in your head. I'm going to decrease my avoidance behaviors. I'm going to decrease my compulsions. I'm going to decrease self-reassurance. I'm going to do those things as I go out and conquer. That term is hilarious, right? Conquer the world. But there is actually truth in that. Humans love to put things on a pedestal, terms, or make it seem easy, both ways. We all do this. I do it. We all do it. But it is funny how we don't, Jordan Peterson is my favorite example of this. We can't just say, you know, if you do that, you'll probably burn. Because if in a religious context, he has to say, you'll probably suffer the mortal fate of the twisted, devilish, hellish landscape of the betrayal of the soul. And you're just like, whoa, it's unnecessary to say that. Just be like, yeah, you're going to burn forever. You know, we don't have to say, well, you know, there's a couple synapses in the brain that fire to the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex and the dysregulation or overstimulation, which, no, this is as simple. You're afraid of being stuck forever. You don't want to experience the sensation, understandably so. It's very uncomfortable. And the more you get comfortable with that, the better you'll be long term. So nothing you do to try to refocus on the present moment is going to really do you any good. By the way, yoga, meditation, box breathing, none of that's inherently bad. It's the reason behind your using it, right? It's like when people say, well, you don't watch porn anymore. Do you think porn is inherently bad? I think it has much more cons than pros. But I don't think it would be not good to say it's 100% bad, because I just watched that twin study where they were doing like one omnivore and one vegetarian diet or vegan diet, and they had them watch porn to see what the stimulation percentages were. Can't remember what they were measuring with, and it was really funny because the doctor that was talking had like genital statues on his desk, and I'm like, this is incredible. But the people who did after 8 weeks, the vegetarian diet, they had more stimulation in their genital region, but they watched porn to see that. So that is a reason how porn can be used good in a way for science. But, you know, it's like saying, is opioids bad for you? Well, for most people it is, but my father used opioids, Oxy 80s, when he was dying of stage 4 pancreatic cancer. So there are some things that can be pretty close to the edge of black and white, but most things are not. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Please reach out, phil@ocdrecovery.com. Hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for all the support, and we'll go from there and see how you're doing. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.